Ready, and action! Now we're going to talk a little bit about number 4 of our lesson plan, which is talking about common characteristics of literature. Sure, we talked about this before, but it does bear repeating. Why? Well, let's look. It says here, Native American literature versus mainstream literature. The challenge question I present to you today. Oh, it's getting hot in here. I talk too much. All that jumping around. Hang on. Gotta take off my Jedi robes. There we go. Now, my challenge question to you is, how are they the same and how are they different? Some people say, well, there are some universal themes in both native and non-native literature, or native and mainstream literature, however you want to phrase it. Oftentimes there's a hero and a heroine. There is oftentimes an antagonist or some kind of conflict, you say. That's actually, I like C the best, but that's just me personally. Why? Because any good story is going to have some kind of conflict or something, man against nature, man against man, man against whatever, the elements, the animals, whatever it is, a man against some evil spirit or a monster. That makes for, good, fun, interesting stories. Man against Freddy Krueger. Never mind, keep going. Storytelling for entertainment, even if it is an actual event. We're going to see a lot of that in native and non-native. By the way, this even if actual event is probably more from the non-native realm because, as you know, in native stories, the lines between what do we want to say? History, written, as what maybe the Chamok might call it, versus the mythical world. Oftentimes that line is blurred, is it not? What else? Hyperbole, exaggerated, hyped up statements, or language is often used in literatures of all types according to some literary critics. Is it true for native literature? Well, we'll see. Maybe Sherman Alexie might have something to say about that. Personification. Personification means attributing human characteristics to non-human things. That's very common in native literature, probably even more common in native literature than non-native literature, unless you're a fan of Bugs Bunny, I don't know. Keep going! There's also allusions, references to commonly known elements and common knowledge, and morals and life lessons. We talked about this kind of stuff before, but what I like about it is you're going to see this, according to some literary critics, you're going to see this all over, literature worldwide. So again, my challenge question, which I'm not going to answer, because I might put it on a midterm, you never know, is, well, in this respect, how is native literature similar and different than non-native literature? Now, we're going to go over to number 5, where it says here, what about Momaday Part 2? Now, if you know anything about the textbooks we've been reading, for some reason, our authors omitted N. Scott Momaday, which I think is a shame. Oh, I already put that up there, too. Why? It's because he had a huge impact on native literature and the so-called Native American Renaissance, which I mentioned before. Again, you know that I like to tell stories. And so did Momaday. God rest his soul. Or may he watch us as he marches on the Milky Way with the spirits of the ancestors. Momaday loved the oral tradition, still loves the oral tradition from up there. And he harmonized this idea of the oral tradition and Western literary tradition. I think he went to Stanford University. And I mentioned before that Harvey Dumars, one of my heroes, Du Huawei, he went over there when he was a young student and went to go heckle old man Momaday, because he said Momaday is an academic Indian. But yeah, because there was that rivalry between Berkeley and Stanford anyway. But never mind. Let's stay focused. His legacy, you see, when he opened the door by publishing The Way to Rainy Mountain and what's the other one called? Suddenly I'm drawing a blank. Haven't had enough coffee. But he published these books, you see, and he was in the 1960s. This was the time was fertile for this new way of looking at the world, a new way of looking at literature. It was perfect because it opened the door and blew everybody's mind. Whoa, this is new writing. Woo, wow, Indian stuff. Woo! And everybody started wearing Indian chokers, and we're talking the Washichus, and everybody else was trying to look like Indians and putting headbands on and braids in their hair and flowers. And never mind. I stay focused. So the fact that he helped to bring this in, usher in this new writing, the Renaissance. He paved the way for Joy Harjo, Leslie Marmon Silko, James Welch, among others. He is among the first wave of Native American Renaissance writers. That's what we need to know for our class. What else? Let's talk a little bit about the generations. This is number 6 on our lesson plan. The generation stuff I forgot to mention in our previous discussion. This is a book that we don't have anymore, but we have the earliest writers of Native American literature. A lot of times these guys are writing memoirs or semi-memoirs or dramatizations of the struggle for survival. Oftentimes you will see young Native kid is removed from his res or from his tribe, from his community, and taken to boarding school or residential school, and his hair or her hair is cut short, and they put chemicals in their hair, supposedly delouse them, and they make them sleep in this big old giant room, which kind of reminds me of boot camp, and they march them around and teach them religion, and each one of these people is writing about that and talking about their experiences and how they struggled to survive and how they lost their language. Then they go back to their reservation, their community, and nobody recognizes them anymore because they act and talk like white people. They don't even know their language. Okay, we talked about that before. That's way back from the 19th century to the first quarter of the 20th century. A lot of that kind of writing is similar. We got John Joseph Matthews, James Paitiamo, John Milton Okenson, and Darcy McNichol, and of course Zit Kalasa and Katisa Muk, I think. I forgot what his name is. Now we got the second quarter. This is where we get resistance and recovery. This is the Native American Renaissance I spoke of. This started around, says here, second quarter of the 20th century all the way up to the 1980s. This is the first wave in Scott Momaday, Leslie Marmon Silko, James Welch, Louise Erdrich, Laura Tohi. We might actually speak to her. I might have an interview with her on Zoom. Ooh. And if I successfully do it, because we talk all the time on Facebook, if I can get her to how do I say this? Quit being such an Indian. No, you know how we Indians are. Never mind. But if I can get her to not be so busy, that sounds better. Because she's a professor. Well, yes, we'll chat this Thursday on Zoom, and I'll post it on e-learning. Now, the last one on here I'm going to talk about, at least for now, is the second wave, which is discussing themes of identity and resurgence. Sherman Alexie, my old classmate, Tiffany Midge, another one of my old classmates, Eric Gansworth, I should say. These folks oftentimes write about what does it mean to be Indian in the 20th and 21st century. And you often see in Sherman and Tiffany's poetry, they're very satirical and hilarious in the way they make fun of what they call pretendians. Back in the old days, we used to call them twinkle bunnies. But these are people who pretend to be natives, and they're not native. They don't know a darn thing. They don't really care. They just dress up and play native. We'll talk about that again later. We might be able to get all this stuff done in 2 lectures or two recordings. We'll see. I make mine too long, though. Now, here's some other stuff. Homework. I'm going to make this short. Remember to keep following the e-learning discussions. Read The Many Lives of Anakajug. I can't pronounce it. Jatug. Anakajatug. 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 There we go. The Many Lives of Anakajatug. It's in our read, listen, tell textbook, page 302. It's an Inuit story, if I remember right, from way, way up north. There is, by the way, in our notes, just a reminder, I decided to define terms carefully so everybody knows we're all on the same page. So we've got Native American Renaissance. This is a literary and artistic movement beginning in the late 1960s, marked by a surge of Native American authored works that blend oral traditions with contemporary storytelling, often exploring themes of identity, history, and cultural resilience. That's what I just talked about. Next, this is something from last lecture, Art for Art's Sake. Wanted to codify it to understand what's going on here. It's a literary and artistic movement that emerged in the late 19th century France. You know how the French are. No, don't get me started. Arguing that true art should have no social, political, moral, or didactic purpose, but instead be done purely for aesthetic reasons. And then the opposite, something I call artistic urgency. There's probably another name for this. As we saw last time, I believe there was another author whose name I can't remember. She said we want to call it art for life's sake. But I call it artistic urgency, pretty much the same thing. The idea, literary and artistic movement typically embraced by creators of color, which asserts that we have no business producing art unless it is to convey a message, be it social, political, moral, or didactic. It is opposed to art for art's sake, which it regards as pointless. Got it? All right. So that's all I got for you today. Nice little short mini lecture we got going on. Next time we meet, we'll probably talk some more, tell some more native stories. I might tell you the hummingbird. No, I already did the hummingbird story, didn't I? Yeah, I did. There's another native story coming up. Can't remember what it is right now, but please stay abreast of all this fun stuff on e-learning because it's going up. Thank you so much for being so kind. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. 14 minutes and 30 seconds.